Well, hello there. In this episode, let's talk about the mandibles and their 8 mechanical bays. They really are the pits. Among Star Wars fans, there is a well-known urban legend that claims the design of the Millennium Falcon was inspired by George Lucas taking a bite out of a cheeseburger and putting an olive beside it. Well, while a fun story, that myth has been debunked several times. The Falcon configuration was arrived at via a series of iterative designs and a really major rethink. In the beginning, when Colin Cantwell created what was known only as the pirate ship, it originally looked much closer to what we now know as Princess Leia's blockade runner. This initial concept was dropped during pre-production when, in 1975, the TV series Space 1999 aired. And George Lucas was concerned that ILM's design looked too similar to the Eagle ship from that series. So a complete pirate ship redesign was kicked off. According to Joe Johnston, lead of the team that developed it, a new concept was finalized within a week. To save money, the cockpit and the radar dish of the original model were salvaged and used on the new one. I'll speak about these in a later episode. The new design brought with it a name, and I've heard that the name Millennium Falcon is a play on 1999 Eagle. And, well, I don't know if there's any truth to that. It is an interesting story. So if you know for sure, let me know in the comments below. And of course, this design change would bring with it the iconic mandibles, when otherwise, without these, it would kind of just be a flying saucer. I don't know when the term mandibles became canon, but I kind of think it's an appropriate name because these kind of really do resemble the mandibles on the head of an ant. Let's never do that again. Along with the engine deck, which I'll cover much later, the mandibles are a core aspect of the Millennium Falcon's guts on the outside aesthetic, and so those special modifications are clearly evident. Clearly, as you can see, I'm a long way from having these finished, and these frames were 3D printed with acrylic tops and bottoms. The original mandibles on the filming model were made of wooden blocks and acrylic sheet up on end, and these will get covered in styrene, so I don't feel bad about 3D printing. When ILM cut their original mandible covers out of acrylic, they probably used table saws and hole saws, whereas I went with the laser cutting approach. Mine were laser cut from a company in Trenton, Ontario called Contrast Medium. And when they arrived, they were glass clear and perfectly smooth. And because we all know that nothing sticks to shiny, I hit mine with the palm sander to roughen up the surface. So all that extra surface area will certainly help with the glue. There are distinct port and starboard frames, and you can tell because this cross member is in slightly different positions. This is to accommodate the fact that the mechanical bays that go into these holes are asymmetrical. They're not in the same place in both mandibles. Also clearly visible are these two aluminum tubes. This is just bog standard 6061 aluminum tubing that you get at any hardware store. And while there are many ways that I could have affixed the mandible frame onto the main frame of the model, I decided to use metal tubing because, well, that's what ILM used. The real filming model used metal tubes in this area to accommodate a mounting structure required for filming. So to add a small level of authenticity to my build, I used metal tubes as well. Granted, you'll never see them once everything's covered up and painted, but I'll know they're there, and I suppose now you'll know they're as well. Oh, and speaking of things you'll never see, ILM cut out lightning holes in the wooden skirt on the filming model. And while they serve zero purpose on mine, I put in the same holes. Again, once they're covered up, nobody will ever see these, but they're just a small homage to the real filming model. Anyway,
stay on target.
Back to the mandibles. As I've already mentioned, the sides of these will be covered in very thin sheet styrene, and then covered in all the greeblies. A couple of the most noticeable greeblies are the left and right halves of the Entex-Wankel engine case and transmission, which are these things, and they mount roughly there-ish, somewhere like that. Filling the 8 holes that are in the mandibles are the 8 unique mechanical bays. These are often called mechanical pits. In episode 2 of the series, I created an example mandible pit for a short demonstration on kit bashing, the technique used to create the Falcon aesthetic. That example, including painting, was finished in less than an hour. But these ones, because I was trying to replicate the filming model, took a few days, not including the several months spent searching for all the required donor kits and then waiting for those to arrive. The bays themselves are these little dish-like things, and I don't know what ILM used. There is some theories that they're the ends for mailing tubes or petri dishes or whatever else. I wound up scratch building mine out of styrene. All 8 of my bays have the same outside diameter of 93 millimeters, but each has a slightly different inside diameter accomplished by inserting styrene strips of various thicknesses. The inside diameter of each bay can only effectively be determined by trial and error of dry fitting the greeblies and getting them positioned correctly according to the reference photos. If parts don't look right, insert another layer, rinse and repeat until they do. Which means you really do need all, or at least most of, the greeblies before you start. Which raises an interesting point. It's amazing how waiting for one thing can have a ripple effect around the entire model. When you're trying to do the mechanical bays and getting the right diameters, you have to wait for all the parts to arrive, which means you can't put those bays into the mandible, which means you can't cover the mandible, which means you can't put them on the model, which means you can't do the sides. And a lot of time is spent waiting for parts to arrive. This part here from the USS Enterprise was locked up at my local post office for 32 days while Canada Post was on strike at the end of 24. A 32-day delay because I couldn't get that one part needed to properly dimension this one bay, which held up a rather significant aspect of the project. For reasons covered in another video, I wound up needing to reprint this whole frame anyway, making that 32-day delay not a big deal. I only bring that up to illustrate how things can get bogged down. This project doesn't really have a logistics officer, and parts arrive when they arrive. The majority of time I've spent on this project so far has been time spent waiting. It's been quite a challenge to keep the project momentum going. Here, though, I have 7 of the 8 bays completed. As I mentioned in a previous video, the last unidentified greebly in these bays has finally been found, and I'm just waiting for one casting of the correct part to finish off the last one. Thankfully, that part is really quite easily accessible, and I can just put it in when it arrives. Walking through some of the more interesting aspects of the mechanical bays, they include parts from trains, tanks, ships, planes, a Saturn V rocket, an underwater laboratory, and even a bridge. This part isn't from a kit, it's a microchip shipping container. I don't know what the chip is used for, but I wonder if the manufacturer knows people are tossing the chip in the bin and keeping the shipping container. You'll also notice that on a few of the mechanical bays, the sides are squared off. This was done to accommodate fitting around the aluminum tube, just like this. It's the same thing that ILM had to do. So again, another little throwback to the real thing. So that's kind of it for this episode. I wanted this one to be a little bit more about the build itself and less about the research and all the preamble stuff that's involved before starting. So I hope you found it very interesting. And again, thanks for watching.